There it goes. It says it's streaming.
Which is funny because it says it's not like on my end on my separate window when I open it up. Okay, there it goes. So hello everybody. We are back again here on Wednesday for Mental Health Wednesday. Your survey was pushed out this morning about coping with I forget the topic, the anger,
Sadness,
and fear.
Yeah.
I got it. So that's a very interesting topic. It's a continuation of what we've been discussing these past few weeks. Yeah, those are great topics. I think a lot of the first thing that comes up off in my mind is that a lot of folks see like anger, sadness, and fear as always kind of a bad thing. And I can understand that in many cases, a lot of times, like right away, like we think like, no, can't do that. I think for me, like as you discussed in the video, I mean, it's something that we find a way to cope with, which we'll go into a little bit more. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing when something frustrates you and when something makes you angry, when something makes you sad, when something makes you afraid. That's okay. I mean, that we all have our different sets of triggers, if you will, that result in anger, sadness, or fear. But it's a matter of like, teachers and staff always talk about growth mindset. How do we actually battle those three things, and how can we utilize them and push them to channel something positive as a result of those emotions as well? I think a lot of times growing up as an athlete, my coaches always told me like, channel your anger, use it to help your team and yourself. Okay, we always talk about like channeling these things in terms of like martial arts too.
Oh yeah.
Like the yin and yang, balancing those things and making sure your ultimate outcome is something good and positive and beneficial for you first of all, and then potentially others around you. So it's a great topic.
Yeah, you mentioned actually briefly around that there are different triggers for different people. Like, for example, if someone were to open my mail, that would make me incredibly, incredibly upset. Whereas I know my sister, she's like, hey, can you open my mail for me? And I'm like, oh my gosh, how could you? You know, it's so different. And so there are going to be different things that make people feel sad, angry, worried. For example, like rain. Rain makes me pretty happy. I enjoy seeing it being dark outside and seeing rain come down from the sky. Some people are incredibly sad when they see rain. And so there are going to be different things that make us feel the same emotions, though. Even though the situations are different, the emotions are similar. The emotions are going to be throughout every single person. That's our number one thing that we have in common, is that our emotional responses, that's what empathy is knowing like, oh, this makes Mr. S angry. I'm not particularly angry by that, but I know he is because I know what it's like to be angry. I have empathy for him in that situation. And so you mentioned that anger, sadness, and worry, they're not bad feelings, but they feel bad. Sometimes they feel uncomfortable, but they are not bad feelings. They're uncomfortable feelings that we would prefer not to have. Happiness, for example, something that people never question. They're like, yeah, this is wonderful. But it is similar. Oh, Cole's here. What up?
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. We're just talking about how feeling angry, sad, and worried are, even though they are uncomfortable emotions, they are not bad, and that you are not a bad person when you feel angry, sad, or afraid.
I totally agree with that.
And I think there's a lot of different things that can trigger us. I mean, certain events might happen, situations might happen, but also, I mean, like smelling, like your senses, your like your five main senses. Sometimes, like something that made you feel bad in your past, or you don't like, or maybe you just don't know that you don't like it, can make us go crazy. Like for example, I know a lot of my students and staff know that I don't like onions, so no cebollas. So smelling it or even seeing it, like I automatically get upset because it makes me feel physically, we talked about last week, physically and emotionally. Physically, it gives me a headache. emotionally I get stressed out and I can't be around it. I had like my friends like are like always laughing at me because I'm like outside in the next room or literally outside if we go to a restaurant, like I can't handle it. So I think there's a lot of different things like our setting where we are, again, our senses. There are a lot of different things that can really trigger us in a way. So like I think in that regard, we have to be understanding of each other and knowing that about and being forgiving, even if you don't know about it, be forgiving. Hey, what's going on? Like, how can I help out with each other? And even yourself, like something brand new. I mean, now that we're talking about food, I had an allergic reaction that I did not expect at a restaurant last year when my mom was visiting and my throat closed up. So I had to have something called an EpiPen just in case I had a really severe allergic reaction. So even in that case, my mom was very like, I mean, it is my mom, but still, she was like, are you okay? Like, what do you need? Like, how can I help you out? Kind of thing. So even with ourselves, like, not to freak out and like, how can I have an outcome that is positive for me and potentially others around?
You bring up a very interesting point because when someone's safety is at risk, like their physical health, it is very hard to calm down. It is very difficult maybe to use a coping skill when you feel like your safety is being threatened, your physical safety or health. And so typically for that, I would recommend people call 911 or, you know, what you're saying, like you get emergency services when your safety is being genuinely threatened. Otherwise, if somebody takes my hot Cheeto out of my bag without me asking, but I treat it like a huge crisis emergency and want to call the police, we should probably scale it down. We could probably use our coping skills to manage how we're feeling in that time. If you're genuinely feeling at risk of something, try to use your coping skills to stay calm, but you also need to get help. We're actually talking next week about who to ask, who are the right people to ask help for, like in different situations. So we'll definitely be talking about that. But we're talking about like healthy and unhealthy coping skills. It might be unhealthy in that moment to freak out when you're having an allergic reaction and you need to stay calm. And so I talked with our students this week about how an unhealthy coping skill is what you do after you feel an intense emotion if it harms you or harms somebody else. And I think that a lot of our students might not know that what they're doing to cope with their emotions is unhealthy. But for example, if I am sad and then I go and spend a ton of money on Amazon because I'm not dealing with my feelings, but I'm just going to go and do something, that's going to end up hurting me later because now I've gotten myself into a hole of some kind. And so I think we need to talk about how unhealthy emotions end up just hurting someone, whether it's yourself or others. What do you think about that, Cole? Or Carruthers, what do people call you?
Coach Carruthers.
Coach. Cool. Coach Carruthers, what do you think about unhealthy and healthy coping skills?
Yeah, I think that they have a dynamic relationship where you might practice unhealthy reactions to emotions or exhibit unhealthy reactions to things. But then maybe later on you learn a different technique or you learn a different way or develop a different relationship to that thing, which will then become maybe a healthier response to something. I know just personally for me, I tend to prioritize my feelings less than others. So if I know that I am doing something that will negatively impact other people in the way that I react, then I'm less likely to react that way. Like, for example, if I'm driving and someone cuts me off and I get really upset, and there are other people in the car who maybe are a little nervous being in the front seat, I won't respond maybe the way that I would if I was by myself, because I'm taking into consideration how they're feeling. But in reality, if I'm responding and I'm constantly reacting to people cutting me off, that's actually like heightening my experience driving, or like heightening maybe my feelings of anger or frustration. And that's also not very good. Yeah, so I think at the end of those things, it's like this relationship that those two things have, and kind of like an ebb and flow that sometimes you learn to deal with as you continue to experience more things.
And that brings up a good point too. Like I'm at a crossroad about what is the right thing, because when you bring that up, I don't know if it's the best. For me, I'm like, okay, maybe I should pretend even when I'm by myself that for example, my grandmother or grandpa were with me. How would I react? Because I know myself, at least for me, when I'm alone, I can be a lot worse. So should I fool myself into thinking that there are people around me so I would act better and build that habit? So I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing for everything, but for someone like me where I know I might not be as great, it may not be as healthy, it's kind of playing like Jedi mind tricks, if you will. Like you want to pretend that someone's there so you're going to have better results. I don't know if that's a good technique or tactic at all, Miss Lar.
Actually, what that reminds me of, and what I appreciate, Coach, about you bringing that up, is that other people do offer us a better sense of accountability for our unhealthy coping skills. So, for example, like the shopping thing, I'm sad and then I shop and I shop and I shop. If I'm shopping alone, no one's ever going to hold me accountable. Maybe I don't even realize that it's unhealthy. But when you have other people in your life that are able to tell you, like, hey, I can tell that you haven't been dealing with this thing that happened to you. Maybe we should slow down. Don't go outside, don't go shopping, stay here and talk to me instead. It's kind of like the same thing with maybe in the car with Coach, they would say, hey, Coach, calm down. It's okay. You don't have to worry about that person cutting you off. So sometimes we need another person there to show us that kind of accountability that what we're doing isn't the best way to deal with our emotions. And so even like you're doing, pretending that someone could be there, that if my mom were there, she would tell me to do something else. That can be incredibly powerful and helpful for you choosing a better coping skill.
And then in the contrary, you can have people that give you a negative influence. Like for example, your shopping habit. It's Prime Day. You ain't gonna get any better deals than that.
Yeah,
Shop away. Rack
and
it
then you're
up.
like, oh man, Mr. S is right. I should just totally go and do the thing that's going to hurt me. Yeah. So sometimes it's tempting because unhealthy coping skills sometimes feel good. And they might have an immediate effect of giving you a distraction, kind of like Netflix, right? Say that you're sad or angry or worried. And so you'll watch Netflix. You'll watch for 1 hour, then 2, then 4, then 8. And the next thing you know, oh yeah, Mr. S.
Marathon.
Yeah, marathon. And there's a difference between like healthy coping, right? Like to take a break, and then the unhealthy coping now, which has lasted for too long, the type of distraction that's becoming now an avoidance. Or to be like quite honest about substances, when people are like, oh yeah, this makes me feel really good at the time, but they have lasting effects on your health and your mental health. And then because it feels good at the time, you're more likely to do it again. Shopping feels good, so I'm going to do it again. But when you do it a lot, that's when it becomes unhealthy. So that's the difference between healthy and unhealthy again, is that they will have long-term negative effects versus running. If I went outside to run to deal with my feelings, that will not be negative. That will have positive lasting effects for my emotions and for my physical and mental health.
And that's absolutely true. I mean, time-wise, like long-term thinking, like in the long run, what's going to help me the most and what's sustainable for a longer time? And not only that, in terms of value, it's meaningful for me and it's meaningful for a very long time, if not, forever. So I'm curious, Coach, are there any healthy coping skills or things you do to help you combat negative results from anger, sadness, and or fear?
Totally. There are so many things that I love to do to either work through my emotions. Sometimes I don't even know how I feel about certain things. Like an event could happen and I don't know, like, does this make me upset? Am I like okay with this happening? So I need time to process things too. And one thing that I really love to do, I don't know if you can see behind me, but there's some green stuff. I love to garden. And so I'm constantly growing seeds. I'm outside, I'm like trimming my trees, I'm like working through those things, because when my hands are busy, I can, and they're doing something that I love to do, I start to like have this time to myself where I can like think, okay, like how am I feeling in my heart and in my mind? And that helps me figure out, yeah, like really what's going on with me. And then another thing that I've started doing is I actually went to school for theater at UC Santa Cruz. And one thing that we would do is we would practice laughing in different kinds of ways. So like you think of like an evil villain from Disney, you would try to practice laughing like that. And even on the worst day where I felt like not laughing at all, just laughing in those different ways made me happier. It made me feel more silly and more playful. And even if I was doing a task that I just wasn't very excited about, my mood would totally change. And so I do try to find those moments to laugh, or even if I'm not feeling up to laughing, like trying out a different laugh randomly.
That I love that, and I think that makes me think of my previous career in sales before I became a teacher. I worked in sales and marketing, and one of the biggest things that I transferred over from that job is when we hop on the phone when we're making a call, is to start with a smile, like literally physically smile, and your mood completely changes. The way you talk completely changes. So it might be uncomfortable for a lot of people to start laughing right away. Like even for me, I'm like laughing, ha 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 ha. It's just like, am I a crazy person? But it works for a lot of people. If you need to take little baby steps, that's why I was thinking of just smiling. Just smile to yourself, and then try to build from there, and then go to laughing, and then physically your entire body doing something that's positive for you. And it's so interesting you bring that up, coach, because it makes me think there's so many different parts of our body that we can use to change all that negative all those negative results. Like thinking about, like, for example, like just a simple haircut. Maybe I'm just like stressed out. Like for me, when I get really stressed out, starting in college, I used to pull my hair a lot. And so like if it helps to like maybe style my hair, or I know some folks like doing makeup, stuff like that. Like if you think about, coach, you talked about your hands, using your hands. Okay, some people think about their arms and their legs when they're working out. Some people use their body in the sense of like just running, like Miss Lara was talking about. Some folks like covering their body with clothes or making clothes for their body. So it's so interesting that different parts of our body, we can focus on that. And then emotionally, the same way, we can focus on different things that we can channel to change the negative results of anger, sadness, and fear. What do you think, Miss Lar?
Yeah, around sometimes thoughts and feelings, because they're so inward all the time, it does really help to bring you into the present by remembering that you have a body and you're in your body and you're safe. And so when people want to start moving their hands, something that can be very calming that a lot of people actually don't use as often as they should is to take a shower. If you're feeling very angry, upset, or sad, and you need to take some space, taking a relaxing shower is going to be very helpful in reducing the tension in your body. Same thing with running or water over your hands. I think that reminding yourself that like your thoughts and your feelings are intangible, they're not real, you can't touch them. And if you're trying to change your thoughts and your feelings, try changing what's around you right now in your situation with your body. So go to a different place, garden, run, get a haircut. Yeah, totally. Exactly. I know a lot of people who cope with difficult situations by getting a haircut. And it's true. There's something about changing your body in a way that is going to help you better understand the space around you. And it doesn't have to be in your thoughts or feelings. It can be in your body, which is why a lot of people choose movement as a way to cope with difficult things, like exercise. A lot of people like exercise and sports to deal with difficult emotions.
And it makes me think of like with specifically unhealthy approaches to anger, sadness, and fear.
Yeah.
Those around us may not completely understand, like aforementioned. So I think communicating to those around you, like, why are you doing? What are you doing? Like, what's going on here, and they don't understand or comprehend what you're going through, and specifically maybe the result, like what you like. For example, I shaved my hair, obviously, again. So maybe someone doesn't understand why I'm shaving my hair. Why am I getting rid of all my hair? Like, what, you look weird. You look like an alien now. You know what? Whatever. I look good. I'm happy. I'm confident in myself. But nonetheless, like, maybe they just don't understand communicating from my side to them why I'm doing and what I'm doing, how it's helping me in a positive way without snapping back or getting frustrated because they feel that way about me. Even if they say something that's rude or derogatory or just upsets me, I need to find myself explaining to them like this, look, reel it back, but this is what I'm going through, why I'm doing it, and how it's actually helping me. So I think that's very important from the person's side.
Yeah. I imagine Coach. I'm sorry, Coach, but I imagine that even the people you live with, if they see you outside gardening, maybe they think, oh, I wonder if Coach is upset, because maybe you're out there gardening as a way to reduce stress. So like, do people know that gardening is something that you do to relax and then they give you space around it?
Well, I try to find myself outside gardening every day. So because I do it so frequently, I don't think maybe my dog understands or senses it, but I do find that people do tend to give me my space when I'm gardening. Maybe it's because I'm the only one who really wants to be out there every day. But I have communicated that that is something that I like to do when I'm feeling particular emotions, and it helps me process. So I do think some folks in my life give me that space. I think you're absolutely right, Mr. S. I think when you can communicate that something might upset you and the way that you react to something looks a particular way, I think that that's really helpful, especially if you're someone's friend or you love that person, because then you can understand like how to support them when they're going through that. And if you recognize those signs, then you can say like, hey, I'm noticing that you're getting upset. Is there something I can do to help you? Yeah.
Yeah, that communication piece I think is really important around those coping skills, because one of the coping skills I suggested in a healthy way is if you want to punch something, which people say like, don't punch something when you're angry. I actually think it's okay to punch something as long as it's safe, like a pillow or a bed or a soft wall. So, or people go boxing because they're trying to release that anger, right? So if you are starting to scream and punch your pillow and you're telling your parents, Miss Laura said it's okay, but then people don't know why you're doing that. They could be very afraid of why, if someone just walks in, you're screaming and punching at your pillow. It could be something, as simple as, I'm really upset right now and I just need some space. Or if you're talking with your mom and she makes you upset and you just start walking away and then jump in the shower, they could be incredibly confused. So you definitely want to communicate what you're feeling, why you're about to do something that you are, and maybe that person will even try to help you, like you said, Coach.
And I think this is like a perfect segue. The next thing that comes into mind, and you mentioned it, is how to pick who to talk to about these type of things, because these three topics, anger, sadness, are really big ones. They're very, very big topics, and I think, I mean, hopefully I don't cover too much of it, Miss Lar.
Go into it, yeah.
But if it's someone you think you trust, it doesn't mean they have to understand every little thing about what you're going through. I mean, the words that come to my mind are like sympathy and empathy. They don't have to like completely experience the same thing for them to be able to support me. Like when I lost a loved one out of the blue in high school, I knew a lot of my friends could not understand. I know some friends tried to approach me like, oh, my grandpa died, I'm sorry, like I know what it feels like. That may be true in many ways, but not entirely. But I think what's most important is they're trying to help, and they're just listening to you and being supportive as much as possible. Whoever you trust during the process, you should think about those things. And I think even before that, Coach, you kind of brought it up. Like, ask yourself everything. We actually mentioned this last week too, Miss Laura. Like I mentioned a phrase, examine yourself, and maybe it was to you or to a friend last week in discussion, but you got to examine yourself first. Like, why am I angry? What got me angry? What got me sad? Why am I so sad? Is this something that I can't handle? Is this something I can control? And like actually taking a pulse check for yourself. Like that's why we always do that. How full is your cup exercise every week in the survey. Those are things that we do on purpose. So you guys actually ask yourselves those big questions. It might seem like, oh, that's not that big a deal, but like really ask yourselves more often than none, like, why are you feeling a certain way? Is it within your control? Okay. What's triggering it? What can I do? Like, is it a pattern? Is it happening often or just like every so often? Or you got to find out these things about yourself. I think it's so important to start there.
In the Mental Health Wednesday survey, I mentioned for some of the kids that choose that their cup is pretty full, one of the extra comments, or I'm sorry, not pretty full, a little full. It's the second one. And it says, it's nothing I can't handle myself. I want our students to be able to be sufficient in coping with their difficult emotions. And there's also nothing wrong with asking for help when you recognize that it's gotten too much or gotten too far. If you have a broken leg, are you going to literally ask no one for help? No, you need the help. And then when you do need the help, are you going to ask your mechanic to help with a broken leg? No, you're not. You're going to ask a doctor. So we need to know when to ask for help and to whom so that we can actually get the help that we need. And I don't think that even I did not grow up understanding the difference between who to ask for help for what in particular. And there are so many people that you can ask for help. You have community leaders, you have faith leaders if you're involved in a church, you have our school leaders, family, friends. There's always going to be someone that you can ask for help from. And I think that we should know who specifically can offer the kind of help that you need.
And that's a perfect segue to end today's session. Again, we typically give out student IDs with a couple of hotlines. So I have my ID in front of me. A lot of the times we give resources on our ID card. You can see my picture, yeah, with hair. But that is a resource that we continually push out. We can find more resources on our specific website at Alpha Blanca Alvarado. Otherwise, you have Alpha Public Schools. And of course, Miss Laura is our wonderful counselor. If you have any questions, make sure to reach out to her. And of course, you have your teachers and other staff members here that you can also talk to. So if you don't feel like you can trust any of us, if you want to keep it confidential, again, there are different outlets that Miss Laura can recommend to you. But again, we always say, don't isolate yourself. Don't put yourself in a corner. Don't lock yourself in a dark room or a dark closet in the corner. Like we want to help out. We don't want you to feel like you're lost or stuck at all whatsoever. These are difficult times, but please make sure to reach out. These videos are posted again on Facebook and Instagram. So involve your family in those discussions as well. We encourage that. We hope to see you guys more often on our social media channels. But yeah, we would love to see more responses as well. And I think just to wrap it up, did you want to do an overview of like some of the responses you've received thus far, Ms. Laura, by chance?
For today, we've gotten already 145 responses for our Mental Health Wednesday. I'm sorry?
That's awesome.
Yes, it is really awesome. So many of our kids are responding. A lot of them do it as soon as they can in the morning. And in terms of their responses, I might not actually be able to do that right now, but I think next week that would be fun. I think I would love to share next week.
Yeah, because I saw results from the previous survey about anger in particular. So it's very interesting when we look at those results. Again, your teachers and your staff are making sure that you guys are in safe environments, not only physically, but also environmentally and emotionally as well. So again, please make sure to reach out if you have any problems, but otherwise, we'll see you guys next week on Wednesday.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.